Hello, my name is Aaron Fountain. Today is February 8th, 2022. I am Cleveland, Ohio, and I'm speaking with Charles Williams. So I have a couple questions that we'll get through. So the first question I love to ask everybody is, can you tell me about yourself, where you're from, where you're born, your parents, and childhood upbringing?
Mm. Yes, I was born in Nashville, Tennessee. Not Nashville, Memphis, Tennessee. But I was raised in Churchill, Mississippi. I was raised by my grandparents who lived there, and mother, Oris Lucille, went to college, and she went to just let my mind just that quick. In the Black College in Nashville, across from Fisk. What is that?
Tennessee State.
Tennessee State. That wasn't hard. But anyway, I lived in Mississippi until I was 14 years old, and my mother and my stepfather, I came to Cleveland after graduating, and then at 14 I came to live with them. And this was, I was born in 1938, and I'm still here, so actually, it's going to tell us how long that's going to be. But my mother is still living. She's 104, and she lives in Detroit. But yes, and after coming here, I went to high school, went to junior high, Patrick Henry, Glenville High School. And this place, this church, Cory United Methodist, it wasn't at that time a United Methodist, just Cory Methodist Church. And it has a gymnasium in there that's attached to it, and that's where all the kids would come after school. And I was a teenager. I started coming here, I guess I was 15, and I kept until I left and went to the service. So I came back from service, and I got married. Well, I got married while in service, and my wife was coming to this church. She's a member of the church, and I was a member at the time of Antioch Baptist Church, but after I got back from service, then I started coming to this church, and finally joined here. And I joined here in '79, and I've been here ever since. So after joining, it's such a bizarre thing. I joined one Sunday, and the next Sunday they made me a trustee. that was kind of weird, and that I've been since '79, a trustee here. Of course, United Methodist has this plan that you're on the board for 3 years. You can serve as an officer for a year, then you'll be either reelected or someone else becomes an officer, chair, vice chair, secretary, treasurer. But I've been selected chairperson just about half the time I've been on the board, maybe a little longer, because after a while you run out of people to make this rotation that is required by United Methodist. And so I wound up staying here on the board, chairperson for a long time. So that's the crux of it.
Okay, no problem. I'm gonna backtrack a little bit.
Okay.
So what were your parents' occupation?
My mother was a school teacher, and my stepfather was a postal worker. He was the supervisor, I think, mostly a night supervisor at the post office.
Okay, and I know you say you arrived, so what part of Cleveland did you arrive to? Did you live in when you came here as a teenager?
Glenville.
Glenville. How would you describe the neighborhood at the time?
It was very, very alive. Everywhere you look, people were there and doing something, going back and forth. To me, being raised on a farm in Mississippi, it was like, I don't know, it was like the liveliest thing I'd ever seen. All the vacant areas that you see now on the street had a building there, and something was in it. Store of some sort, drugstores, haberdasheries, restaurants, record shops, shoe shine shops, ice cream, barber shops, all over the place. Every spot you see that's vacant had a thriving business in it. It was nice. It took me a while to get used to, but then once I got used to it, it was like the place to be.
Okay. Well, how was the high school too? How was the high school?
The high school environment was good. It was a good environment. It was the time I was at junior high. We had it was always crowded. Schools at those times were classrooms had either I'd say from 18 to 25 students in them, and it was just in Glenville High School. Before I got to Glenville, I was about in the seventh. I was in the 8th grade, and Glenville at that time was mostly a Jewish school, and I would say it was like about 25% black and 75% Jews. And by the time I got there, it had almost flipped the switch. It was about 25% Jewish and 75% black. And at that time, it just seemed like it's hard to really compare, but you had more structure. Teachers were more stronger in developing a child at that time. In other words, if a kid would get in trouble, do something stupid, the teacher would have more active role in straightening it out, and they had more of a camaraderie with the parents, and things worked out great. And I don't know where that changed, but it changed kind of drastic later on,
Okay, so you were here when Lakewood went from like around 90% white in the 1940s to like 90% black in 1950s.
When I came to Cleveland, it was probably 50-50. Thinking back, quite a few blacks on their own homes. That was the biggest part. That was amazing to me. Some streets were so beautiful, but you still had mostly black people on one street, and another, would be mostly white, that I could tell. And it's, as I said, this is a Jewish community. So you would have, people mixed in some areas, and it was quite different to me at the end, but I got to understand it and appreciate it a lot. The change of the racial structure of it.
And so you went to the service at the high school. What year was this?
This is in 1959.
Okay, how long did you serve?
3 years and 15 days.
How was that experience serving in the
That was pretty rough. The one thing that how I can explain this is like when you're growing up in the South and on a farm and in a segregated place like the South was, there were a lot of uncertainty about a child growing up, what to do, what not to do, and how to do it, who to talk to, and whatever. But when I got into the Army, there were some things I had to do with interact with others. Well, the uncertainty was very prominent to me then. I just didn't have a feel for the next thing I did, whether I was doing it right or not. My most fear was messing up. I didn't want to go before anyone with any problem, especially officers, until I don't know, I can't explain the change, but I can tell you that by the time I got out of the service, it seemed like that was all. I had no problem talking to anyone on any basis or whatever. I had no problem speaking up for myself, which was very hard for me in the beginning. But once at some point, I don't know if it was the association with other soldiers who, didn't have that problem that but it did a lot for me in some ways. But my basic training from my home more or less came to help me out more than anything else. From the training, the raising that my grandparents did for me. That was my backbone, my strength.
Okay. So you did mention this briefly, but just go back to this. What attracted you to Cory? I said you came to member in '79.
Yeah. It was my wife. Yeah, Lily was, and her family was a member here. And we only lived right down the street there on Adams. And we would come to church here because we could either walk or it was a short distance. And I never really acquired the desire to go back to Antioch. I never really wanted to do that. But most of all, I spent a lot of time here and learning people here. And this is how, I came here.
What disinterests you in Antioch? Well, that's where my parents was going to church. They were Antioch members. My mother still is a member there. But I just, it's like it's a distance away too. I didn't want to get up that early to travel if I had worked the night before, because usually I was on second shift. Getting up and getting prepared to go out there, it just didn't hit me. It just didn't feel right. Okay, now did you come back to Glenville after the service?
Yes.
Okay, so I know Cory was pretty
About civil rights?
Yes.
Well, I wasn't so much involved in the civil rights movement because at that time, I was getting out of service, and I had a wife and a baby, and my main interest at that time was getting a job and, preparing and making a living for them. And that was pretty difficult at that time. I got out of service, I couldn't buy a job. Things were very, very hard. And so I just stuck to my guns about trying to find work more than, getting involved with civil rights and whatnot. Even though I felt it in my heart. I knew that it was something important to deal with because I've been knowing about it all my life. It was something that I just couldn't put aside. But at that time, the most interesting thing to me was to provide for my family. And once I did, once I landed me a good job, it was just like catching up, And it took me a long time to catch up from where I was at, but I was aware of all the civil rights movement, and my wife and I talked about it all the time, and we taught our children about it, and it was something that was present in our lives, but it wasn't anything that we really went out and participated in, and even though we really wanted to.
Hey, what was the job?
The job I finally got was working at Chrysler Stamping Plant in Twinsburg, and it was a pretty good jump for me. And that was like 2 years after I got out of service. Yeah, I bounced around quite a bit before that. And then I worked there for 5 years, and I finally went to another company that I worked at for 31 years. And it's Lincoln Electric on St. Clair. It was a pretty good outfit.
So, yeah, I'm curious. Even though you weren't like that involved with the movement for understandable purposes, do you have memories of the church leadership when you first came to Cory? Since many of them were pretty active in the community.
Yeah, I do. It was. I thought it was at that time it was rather small, but the participation I did was working with other trustees and maintaining the boilers and caring for certain things around the building, learning the ropes about being a trustee, and it was great. It was interesting time of life for me because I had one fellow that I used to always cling to, and his name was Porter Lee. And Porter Lee was one of those guys. He was a no-nonsense guy. He would smile when there was something to smile for, but you never seen, just rear back and cut loose a big laugh. You start laughing and carrying on. He'd walk away and find something to do. And I found a comfort in working with him because he taught you how to do it, and he let you go to work on it, that you do your thing. And then he'll walk up to you and tell you if you messed up. He says, well, you see, I didn't tell you that. You doing that's on your own. That's something you decided to do. And that was some good teaching that I got from him. And of course, in other things around, we had enough people that would fit in every slot that was needed then, Unlike now, one person had to take on 2 or 3 different roles, Yeah, that was my contribution to leadership.
Who was the pastor at the time?
When I got here, it was actually it was the pastor who married me and my wife, Reverend Sumter Riley. Okay, and when I got here and joined, it was and then this pastor was only here for Roy Neal. Roy Neal was his name. He was only here for 2 years, and then Reverend Talbot came in. He was here for about 13 years, 12, 13 years. So I've seen a few pastors come and go. Yeah.
How would you describe their like overall involvement in the Glenville community?
Well, the only thing that I can point to is that we were always open to anyone who wanted to come in and have meetings and whatnot for the community. We were open for Dr. Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, and there are other leaders that the Black National, no, not the Nationalist. There were a time when we did have the Muslim open up our church. Yes, Nation of Islam. And there was a time when I can't think of the name of the group right now, but we were open to just about everyone who were interested. The Jewish people would come back sometime and help look through, teaching their children where they would, when they were small, different rooms and whatnot, and talk. And but it was always, the doors of this church was always open. It's always open.
Did you attend any of the events with Dr. King or Malcolm X?
No, I did not. I did not. Those are done as my lean years. I had a chance to see him, and I knew he was on Superior. There was a church there on Superior, St. James, I think it was. He was going there. And I got my oldest girl ready to go and to meet him. I want to go in, because he was going to be out, shaking hands. And I said, maybe we can get you to shake his hand. So as soon as we got there, the sky opened up. And he was standing out there too. He was standing out there, waved to me, waved back, and was getting ready to get out. And it just dumped on us. And we got back in the car, and he ran on in the building. We missed that opportunity. But it was good to see him. It was good. It was a nice thing to do. Yeah.
That's interesting. Oh yeah, I know. Cory was pretty active in creating recreational activities for the community.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have any involvement in that, or did your kids participate?
The only thing the kids participated in was when they had like Easter pageants, and they had when they march out and show their dresses and whatnot, the Easter parade or whatever. And they had Boy Scouts and football, baseball and stuff like that. But I didn't get to participate in any of that because the jobs I had wouldn't allow me to do that. I couldn't. If you had one shift job, you're all right. Or even if you were on one shift and you're on the second shift, that would take all that out. So I never had a chance to just come up and participate in anything like that. But I knew the guys who did, a matter of fact, Harlan Nash was one of the guys who trained, who was in charge of football, coached the football, and he coached Ted Ginn Sr., who was very instrumental in getting a lot of guys out of Glenville into Ohio State. Troy Smith and all those guys. But yeah, the ties goes real tight through here. Just so happened I wasn't a part of it.
I'm kind of curious, what are your responsibilities as chair of trustees?
The responsibilities were to oversee the property and make sure that everything is up to snuff. Like for instance, we had boilers that would go bad. I was very instrumental in buying new boilers. We have a contract with the city of Cleveland for the recreation area, and this is probably this is the only site that they have that they share a building with. The city has its own buildings, so we negotiate contracts on how the rent is paid, for the use of it, and then we negotiate on how we come together and take care of the boiler room, make sure the boilers are good and up there, which, as we speak, that's what we're involved with right now. With code and all that, but there are other items. The trustees are in charge of whatever properties there are, whatever properties that we have, like the parsonage, we make sure that is kept up and in a great manner. I won't say good, we need to have, it's always in good shape, It's a building for the pastor who lives in it. And we also, as trustees, and I say I, but it's always we, because this is how the trustee board works. We work together in different areas, different parts. So, one person has a part of that he takes care of, another person has a part he takes care of, all that, and so on. There are repairs on the building that is decaying, which in this instance, this building now is in its worst repair stage, and that's because, over the past years, sometimes things we just didn't have the funds to do some certain things, and consequently, we kind of got out of hand. But with God's help and with His grace, we have been able to sustain a lot of things here and keep it if we didn't do some of the things that we did, it would be in worse shape than it is now, And as people went on, you get different people in different situations, and it's not always a perfect fit for a person. Sometimes people can do one thing great, like repair a boiler or whatever, do the water lines in the church that goes through, repair that, but he can't repair a window. And there are those who can do that, and this is how we survive, myself and one of my other trustees. And for a couple of years ago, for a few years, we had to repair all of the lines, the return lines from the boiler. This is steam heat. Steam goes through, the water goes back. So the lines sometimes break a leak. And usually it takes a bona fide plumber to do it. But my friend was a school teacher and he taught shop. So a lot of stuff we just looked at it and just figured it out and repaired it. Those are the things that we do as a trustee to oversee property.
So, yeah, so what do you think one of your biggest accomplishments or contributions to Cory has been?
As a trustee or?
Trustee, member, or all-time resident?
My biggest contribution, I guess, being a trustee. I've dedicated a lot of my time and my knowledge and funds as well. And I've done it gladly because I enjoy doing it. When things go wrong, that's when I have a long face. But when things are right, it makes me happy. I guess that's the mark of a satisfied trustee.
So, I know you can't probably speak for your children, but what type of influence do you think the church has had on them?
On my children? Well, I feel that I want to say I feel that it was a great influence to them because they came here, they met children of their own age and grown-ups who they respected and got respect in return. And I think in my heart, I feel that it instills a lot of compassion and understanding, and they learn so much about the Lord, and I could just see what they've learned as they was growing up as, grown-ups. Even today, I can tell that they were here because some of the things they do remind me of what they was doing here. This church was it jump-started their life in the right way, I'd say. Even though, and I know from experience that when you get away and you're on your own, you have tendencies to forget some things that you learn, But basically, when the chips are down, you turn to the things that you really learned well that brings you through. And I think this church has did it for them.
Okay. One last question. I was at Glenville is a neighborhood that had changed a lot. So what do you think are some of the differences and similarities compared to when you first came here with the neighborhood and the church compared to now?
Oh my gosh. That is humongous. See, when I first came here, this church, it was filled to the brim with people. I can remember right down the street where you'll see a gas pump is. It's where it was a building that at that time it was a shoe shine shop, a ice cream place, a barber shop, and a drugstore, all in that one building. So I worked in the shoe shine shop. And there were some Sundays that I worked at the shop that I would see people coming here, going to church. My father-in-law used to come here. And you would see them, getting off of buses by the loads, and they would come here to church. And when church let out, it's like the whole street was full of people. waiting on a bus, getting in their cars, going home. And it's not even a glimpse of that right now. It's just, and I can understand it because all the children that went here are in other cities now, and simply because, like my daughters, they went to college, they graduated, and they're whatever they learned took them to another city to work, and it leaves the home buried just like at home. Now, when they left to go to school, nobody but me and Mama was in the house, and it was a void there because they were gone. So when they didn't come back to the city, it's a void here. So whoever comes back in, whoever comes in to fill that void may not have been the type, or maybe it was better type than if our own children had come back. I believe that if every parent that came to this church to raise their children had come back here to Glenville, this would be a flourishing city all over again, community, because what we instill in them would be here still. Those who came in and filled that void may not have that ideals that for this area. So yeah, it's different. It's hard to compare here now with then. And what I see, I don't even want to talk about. It's hurtful.